Blog Talk Radio.
Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith.
There's been a spike in the desire to own guns in Connecticut. Statewide, over 90,000 guns have been authorized for sale. You know how I feel about it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Good evening, my fellow patriots and Americans, fellow Americans and patriots. That was Madison Rising. Join them on the web at www.madisonrising.com for more music. Madison Rising is the official music provider here at the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Hey, it is Thursday the 7th. Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing how fast this year is just progressing. You know, it's just, you know, I remember as a child growing up in this great country and just being in awe and, you know, couldn't wait until I could grow up and participate in everything that America has to offer. And now I look back at it and it's just utterly, I wish it would slow down. I wish I could go back to those days. Probably like you, my listeners and stuff. We got a jam-packed show for you tonight. We're going to have Prepper Recon on, obviously every Thursday, giving us some of his insight and knowledge in all things prepping. We are going to be talking about a very unforgotten segment of this economy, and that's animals. So we will be discussing that, you know, asking for your help to support your local shelter, animal shelter during this time, this downturn, this economy. You know, the administration can say whatever they want to. They can say, oh, the financial problems are all solved, but the reality of it is they're not. As you walk through your neighborhoods, as you look and you see businesses closing, you go down to your main business centers and you see windows boarded up, for sale signs. It's not getting better. Don't believe the hype. But I know that you don't because you listen to the Midnight Patriot radio show. Now, if you want to join us, you can always find us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. We do have a 1-800 number now. It's 1-800-580-4870 for those that want to call in on the 1-800 number. We also have another standard phone line for those that don't mind putting it on their bill. 347-205-9899. Hey, we gave you a 1-800 number. That's our form of economic relief to all you patriots. So you can join the conversation by calling the 1-800 number. We got a jam-packed show for you. Like I said, we got Prepper Recon coming on. We're going to be breaking down some of the, I would say, some of Obama's less than desirable political moments since he's been in administration. We got about 24 of them. So we're going to be doing that. I'm talking about a father who's been persecuted because been called a neo-Nazi because he didn't go along with his son's Common Core curriculum. You know, we've got a Secret Service agent who is going to give us a warning. Now, that's unusual in itself. You know, Secret Service typically don't get political and don't talk. This one does. So we'll be talking about that at the next segment. And of course, for all those who don't know, we are celebrating Reverend Billy Graham's 95th birthday. So we'll have a little tribute to him and for all that he's done for this country in spreading the word of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Jeff Norton of the Midnight Patriot Radio Show. Join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com for all the call-in news and information.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving
Oh, it's my time machine.
Does it work?
Sure, just hit this button.
Whoa, dinosaurs. Cool.
Or we can go here.
Hey, that's Napoleon.
Oui.
Or we can go to the future.
Wow, hey, you have this nice house. Do I have a nice house?
No, you didn't save any money. Always spent it on vacations and stuff.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and correct that bad habit.
Yep.
Okay, the time machine is not real, but the saving thing is. Get in the habit of putting some of your money in savings each week through a 401k, savings account, or financial investments. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy tips on saving, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
What does this crazy little button do?
Wait, no!
This message brought to you by the American...
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can join in the conversation at 1-800-580-4870. That's 4870. I got to get the numbers in. These are new numbers for me. Or you can call at 347-205-9899. So, yeah, we have a 1-800 number for you guys. We have the capability of handling 250 simultaneous calls. That's about 249 more than the Obamacare website can handle at this current time. You know, it's still broke. It's still broke and stuff. But, you know, we'll talk about that a little bit later after we talk with Prepper Recon. But as we said earlier, right before we went off the break, they're, you know, great American citizen, a great patriot, great Christian. Billy Graham, for those that don't know, celebrating his 95th birthday tonight. We want to say happy birthday. Now, to be honest with you, growing up in the Bible Belt, I really wasn't a religious man or a religious person. Not at all. Actually, I would more of a rebel. Did a lot of things, you know, like most young men, most people, are not proud of. It wasn't until recently, until things happened. And it's amazing, you know, a very smart man once told me, you want to hear God laugh? Tell him your plans. Tell him your plans. And it was, like I said, it wasn't that I was led to Jesus Christ or to God through a church or anything like that. I was led because of things that were going on in my life. And I remember, you know, poignantly saying, I just can't continue living this life of doing it my way. I need help. And, you know, like most people who rebel, you know, they tend to burn bridges. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, I ran out of help, right? I ran out of people, things, places. And I was just walking one day. And I remember this poignantly. Like I said, I remember it. It's vivid in my mind. Walking down the streets of Chicago. Just leaving my work. Knowing that I was going to be laid off. Knowing that I was going to not have insurance, which I had to have because I was mandated by court to have it for, you know, because of a divorce. And asking myself, what am I going to do? And it was a strange moment because not strange. It was a great moment, actually. I was walking in Chicago. I tell you the streets. I can tell you the sights, the sounds, the homeless man that was sitting there on the street corner. And I walked by him. I did. I walked by him. And I've seen this homeless man many a times before. And just walked by him. But for some strange reason, I walked into my office building. I had this little, the voice. You hear the voice. Hear the voice. And the voice basically said, give that man some money. He needs to eat. Now, mind you, I've never in my life ever done that. People that know me know I am a generous person in some regard. But homeless people, I kind of like, go to the shelter. Go to the shelter. But in this instance, after walking past this man way over 100 times, 1,000 times probably in my year or so that I was working in Chicago, I had a voice said, "Give that man your money." So I reached into my pocket and I had change. But here too, I'm like, I'm going to lose my job. This is, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. And really the voice, being sarcastic, kind of like I am, like I would talk to myself, said, "You think the change is really going to help you more than it's going to help him?" So I stopped. I turned around. And like I said, I walked by this man literally 1,000 times. And the strange thing is every time I walked by him, he always said, "God bless you," even though we didn't give him any money. My friends sometimes did when we would go into lunch, but I never gave him any money. I just kept on walking. But every time I walked by him, he still said, "God bless you." And for some strange reason that day, when I was caught up in all of my issues, I had that voice. And that voice said, "Give him everything you had." So I did. I turned around and walked away. I walked out the door. Walked down the street and I dropped the money in his pocket or in his cup. I can tell you from that minute, my life changed. Now those that know me know I'm a linebacker. I'm huge. You look at any professional football team's offensive line, that's me. When they talk about their size and their weight, my family and Sandy will sit there and look at me. She goes, "That's you." Holy smokes. I would not want to get ran over by you. Now, granted, they're about 20 years younger than me and probably in a lot better shape than I will ever be in. But here I am walking down. You got to imagine the sight. I'm walking down the streets of Chicago. Just gave this man literally the last bit of change I had in my pocket, not knowing how I was, where my job was going to take me or what was going to happen, because I knew I was going to lose my job. We knew it was coming because of the sequestration that was going on, the Obamacare. For those that listen to the show, yeah, I got the letter. And I was told, my job ended up, for various reasons, got shipped out of the country. So here I am, leap of faith. I took the leap of faith. I heard that voice and I followed it. I will tell you that as I walked away from him, I literally had to hold myself down from crying. Because, like I said, a 6'6" monster of a man in downtown Chicago crying is going to attract the wrong type of attention. It's going to make people nervous. So I was holding it back to everything. But I will also tell you, in that great, in the joy, and it was joy. It was pure joy that I actually did something that was out of my will, but the will of, now that I know, Jesus Christ. I know that without a doubt. Now, this is not a sermon, but I just want to let you guys know that there is a point or an epiphany in your life, and when you hear that voice, and you'll know it, you need to listen to it. You need to take heed, because at that moment, you have the choice and the opportunity to completely change your life, such as I have. Now, it's still a journey. I'm still getting through it. But you know what? There's a lot of, I'm still technically, looking for a job. I'm doing what I love to do, which is right here. But we still have mountains to climb. But, the thing is that I'm not worried about it. We'll get through it. I had an interaction today that I thought was going to be a hostile interaction. I prayed right before I went to it. I said, just, get me through this. Get me through this. And you know what? I was there, and it was a hostile situation as I'm wrapping up one part of my life and going on to the other. And I will tell you, I was shocked. The other person was very pleasant. Showed me a picture of his kid. We started out the meeting where he shows me a picture of his kid, his children. He's proud of them, and he's doing it, and then we're doing the paperwork. Then we proceed to go on with the paperwork. Here I was thinking, oh my gosh, it was going to be, knives and daggers. And no, it was completely opposite. And I know that. I know where it comes from. And I'm just telling you. And so it's appropriate. A man such as, like I said, when I grew up, obviously growing up in the Bible Belt, we knew about Billy Graham. But I was never a listener of his message. And it's amazing, though, how soon that has changed. So as we sit here tonight, I want to say, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Graham. For your messages. I have been listening to them of late. And, this is a tribute towards you and your 95th birthday. May God bless you and your ministry.
You have to meet God with life. I do not believe that any man can solve the problems of life without Jesus Christ.
Celebrating his 95th birthday, Billy Graham marks a career as Christianity's most successful spokesman. He preached 417 crusades over a span of more than 50 years, reaching 210 million people in 185 countries. Over the years, his message remained consistent. Commit your life to Christ, just as he did as a 16-year-old farm boy in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Millions of searching for God through religion and not finding it. I'm not asking you to come to a particular church. I'm asking you to come to the person of Jesus Christ.
Graham also served as the nation's informal chaplain, praying with every president since Harry Truman. He offered invocations at 9 presidential inaugurations. Retired to his mountaintop home in Montreat, Graham stays faithful and looks beyond dying. The first thing I'm going to do when I get to heaven is to ask, why me, Lord? Why did you choose a farm boy from North Carolina to preach to so many people?
And my whole life came before me. And I didn't say to the Lord, I'm a preacher. I've preached to many people. I said, oh Lord, I'm a sinner. I still need your forgiveness. I still need the cross. And I asked the Lord to give me peace in my heart, and he did, a wonderful peace that hasn't left me till this day.
Billy Graham, celebrating his 95th birthday tonight. What an amazing, amazing story. And like you said, that peace that falls over him. That's what happened to me. I get questioned many a times. And I'll say this, and I'm not bashful about it. With everything else that's going on, what we're doing, how do I find the time to do this show. And I can tell you, I don't find the time. It's made for me. It's made for me. It's not that I go out as an individual and search for this and the knowledge that I present during the show. It's given to me. I know Rush Limbaugh uses the talent unloading from God. Remember that? No, this is directly from you. It ain't on loan. It ain't on loan. You know? And that's how I do it. You know, it's through him. Through Jesus Christ and his Father that we bring you the show. And, you know, and I know a lot of you patriots out there. I know we got a lot of them. And I will stress this to you. And I know a lot of you, you know, have your beliefs, and, you know, we're not overly religious, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not going to apologize for it one bit. If it offends you, turn it off. Go on to the next show. There's plenty out there. But I'm going to tell you this. There is going to be a day in your living life, forget about when you leave this earth, where you're going to have to reconcile with your community and your group, and you're going to have to come together as a group, and you're going to have to work together to help rebuild this nation. We're trying to rebuild it before it gets to that point, but it's coming. And one way that you can do that, I get questions, you know, where do I go? Fellow patriots. A lot of people are on Facebook. Well, when Facebook gets turned off, it's going to be turned off. What are you going to do? Who are you going to socialize with to get your patriotic messages, you know, out there? And I tell people, join groups, join organizations. And I can tell you, the best organization to join is your local church. Is your local church. Now, you can join your militias, you can do all of that. But I'm telling you that when it's all said and done, this country was formed by our fathers who had devotion to Jesus Christ and the church. This great nation that we want to return to. So why would we not want to associate ourselves with the same type or structures that they were members of, the church? If you want to return to greatness, go to where greatness began. You know, I hear patriots say that all the time. Well, and I know most of my patriot friends are God-fearing, church-going, and they ain't necessarily going to a church, but believing in something greater than yourself. But, you know, that's why we always tell you here at the Midnight Patriot, if you want to associate with groups, the best way to find a group is go to your local church and start there. Start there. So you're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 12 a.m. Central Standard Time, and 24/7 on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. When we get back, I think Prepper Recon will be joining us. We got a lot of news to talk about. You know, we compiled a list of about 24 scandals, and the list keeps growing of this administration. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Secret Service now speaking out against the president. We've just got a ton of information to talk about. So join us after the break at www.themidnightpatriot.com.
I had PTSD. Once I was back from Iraq, I was distant from everybody in my family. We had a reunion of our unit, and you'd hear these spouses say, "Is your husband doing that? My husband's doing that too. I thought it was just us." And really understanding that, hey, this is a common experience.
I learned more to listen to what he was saying, and that made it easier for me to understand where his pain was coming from.
Resources are available for military families. Learn more at realwarriors.net.
Out of control spending, government that no longer works for the people. Had enough? Then vote for Stone Anthony for president. Replace politicians with a citizen statesman. www.stoneanthony2006.com.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends. I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving
Oh,
children.
that? It's my time machine.
Does it work?
Sure, just hit this button.
Whoa, dinosaurs. Cool.
Or we can go here.
Hey, that's Napoleon.
Oui.
Or we can go to the future.
Wow, hey, you have this nice house. Do I have a nice house?
No, you didn't save any money. Always spent it on vacations and stuff.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and correct that bad habit.
Yep.
Okay, the time machine is not real, but the saving thing is. Get in the habit of putting some of your money in savings each week through a 401k, savings account, or financial investments. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy tips on saving, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
What does this crazy little button do?
Wait, no!
This message brought to you by the
America. Welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host. You can join us here. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Get ahead of myself sometimes. I really do. It's funny how that happens. Mine gets into next week before today's even done. So I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. Give us a call. This is our economic plan for all of you out there that are listening to help you. You can actually give us a call. We have a 1-800 number for you. It's 1-800-580-4870. That's 1-800-580-4870. Our normal number is 347-205-9899. And right now, joining us on Skype is Prepper Recon. Hey, Mark, how are you, buddy?
Doing good, Jeff. How you doing, man?
I'm
Good to be
doing
back on the show.
Oh, it's incredible. I'm doing really well. And you?
Doing great.
I'm just gonna say, I got your book. I'm actually reading. Let me back up and do a formal introduction here of Prepper Recon. He's an author. He's a blogger. He's also a fellow podcaster in all things prepping. And I will have to say, your book, American Exit Strategy, I've been reading it. There's two things I got to say about your book. Number one is I know a little bit about your background, so the fun part for me is trying to figure out the characters and who they actually are in your real life. I mean, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I will have to tell you, your book is when is it going to be a movie?
Oh man, that's an awesome compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm reading. I can't put it down, and it's funny because Sandy's like, "Well, what book is that one?" And I'm like, "This is," and she's, "Oh, it's another one of you know." Sandy's kind of like, "Oh, it's another one of your government conspiracy books," like, and I'm like, "No, this is actually a fictional book, and it's a great story." And I'll let you know, I have so many people that ask us about, well, what should I do? And I've been telling them, like, you know what? You can listen to our show, for prepping, go out to the Prepper Recon site and do it. But, read this book. He wrote an excellent book. It's a great book. So if you're sitting around, I have one friend in particular, I know he sits around quite a bit waiting on people. He's in the chauffeur business. And I'm like, you got to read this book as you're sitting there waiting on your next fare or whatever, because it gives you step by step kind of like what you need to do through a story. So outstanding book. But like I said, I'm reading the characters. I'm like, well, that's Mark. That's Mark's wife.
That's me.
Yeah, that's his wife.
Cat.
That's the cat. And exactly. It's outstanding. So, yeah, I highly recommend. And we do have a new feature. So, for all those that want to get Mark's book, it's American Exit Strategy. You can actually get it at our website, www.themidnightpatriot.com. Go to products and then products and then do the offsite link. That will take you to Amazon. We have links to all the products that we recommend here. Now, I will tell you in full disclosure, I'm not peddling books or anything like that. Amazon does pay us a 4% commission on everything that goes through there, but the prices are the same as you would on Amazon. So that's a nice way of you getting a great book, and also helping us out a little bit and stuff. But we don't peddle stuff on this show unless we actually use it or endorse it. So, but just in full disclosure. So there will be a link after the show, Mark. I'll put your book up actually with the show, and people can order it through there. But incredible. So.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you're enjoying it, Jeff.
Oh,
really,
it is.
yeah, that really makes me happy.
Now,
So much.
get off this podcast and go finish book number 2.
I'm writing as fast as I can. Actually, this week I'm editing the audio book. So I'm going to get that back to the guy that's reading it, Kevin Pierce. He's just really got that awesome storyteller voice, and he's doing a really, really great job. And so I've just got to get that back to him tomorrow, and then it goes to ACX, which is the Audible company that does the final cut of it, and then it should be out in time for Christmas for people that like audiobooks.
Awesome.
Because a lot of people that they have some kind of job, or a lot of them, they drive around a lot, have a long commute or whatever, and maybe they don't have a lot of time for reading, but audiobooks are great.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, I'm a firm believer. Is when I used to take the train into Chicago, and that was a hour and 47-minute commute one way. I lived on audiobooks. I mean, that's
yeah, you could get through a couple a week.
Yeah, it was funny because Amazon, we were joking with them, is that Amazon has that the monthly plan where you sign up and then you get a book.
Audible.
Audible, and it was like, well, do you not have a plan where it's unlimited or whatever? And I ended up going to Safari Books. Actually, is another one where you pay a flat monthly fee, and you can get it's Safari Books online. You can get the books. You just pay a monthly fee, and you get unlimited books, and then they also have audiobooks there as well. So I highly recommend that. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. But now that I got all this free time, I have time to read the book now.
Sure. Yeah. So American Exit Strategy, book 1 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, will be available in audiobook form on Audible and iTunes, and also it'll also be available through Amazon.
Wonderful. And then book 2, I know you're writing it now, so.
Yes.
So
I'm hoping January or February. I'm hoping to have it out.
I'm hoping you become the James Patterson of prepping books.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I hope so too.
It's like, he comes out with a book every 2 months. I don't know how he does. I don't think he's actually writing his books. Wow. I think he has college kids that write them for him. I just don't know, because I actually was thinking about writing a book, and the amount of time, I know it takes up a tremendous amount of time, and it's amazing. But I can't wait. I'm about done with your first one, and I'm already chomping for the second one. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about prepping. I will tell you, I ordered, if you go on our website, I added that products page. I did order the stapler instead of the suture.
Oh, very
kit.
good.
So we do have that listed. Very
good. Yeah, it's cheap. For the life-saving mechanism that it is, it's cheap.
Yes, absolutely. Well, absolutely, and it's it's cheap. It's fast. It's everything. To me, I think it's a little bit bulky, in a sense of it takes up a lot more room than normal sutures would, but I was,
Yeah, but with the normal sutures, you're going to have hemostats, and you're going to have you have to have a lot of other peripheral equipment to be able to do it.
Well, and the training, too. You got to have the training practice to do it. But
everybody knows how to use a stapler.
Yep. No, and it's amazing.
A lot of us have even used staplers on ourselves before, I'm sure, accidentally, but, stapled a thumb or...
Yeah, this is true.
Index finger.
So, so we have that listed, but, for those that are just joining us last week, you got to join. Prepper Recon is here every Thursday night. So if you go to every Thursday of the Midnight Patriot podcast, you'll actually hear our conversations. And last week we actually talked about medical kits. The prior week was bug out bags. Last week was medical kits, and so that's what the state people are probably. I need to bring people into the conversation, because they're probably going, "State, what the heck are these guys talking about?" So but no, it's medical staplers instead of sutures. This week we're going to talk about.
Yeah, this week's going to be bug out bags. The week before we did the whole we did the drive-by version of the 7-step preparedness plan.
It all runs together, Mark. I'm getting old. I'm getting old.
So what's going on with the military, Jeff?
Oh, geez.
Are we're kicking out some? Are they cleaning out some bad apples?
No,
General Carter Ham of the Army. He criticized Obama on the Benghazi thing, and I guess he mysteriously decided to resign. Back in April.
Yep.
We had Rear Admiral Charles Gouet of the Navy.
Yep.
He testified in the Benghazi hearings.
Yeah.
And he got busted down for using profanity in public.
Yeah. Yeah. We've actually had 3 generals or flag officers either be demoted, removed of command, or forced retired because of Benghazi.
I've got 9 in this list.
Well, there's 9 total, but I'm just saying there's 3 specific that are tied just to Benghazi.
Yeah,
just Benghazi.
Benghazi, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's
Ralph Baker, General Ralph Baker from the Army. He was also critical of Benghazi.
Yep.
And then he got what they got him for is he supposedly groped a civilian.
Yeah.
These men are some of the most disciplined individuals in the world.
Yes.
And have been found to have such high and outstanding character as to be promoted to general, and so General Ralph Baker groped a civilian. That just doesn't. It kind of doesn't add up.
And
if it was one guy, everybody, one out of 100 or whatever, yeah, they mess up. But then Brigadier General Brian Roberts, he got busted down for adultery.
Yes. Now there is
He should have waited till he was president, huh?
Yeah, he should have, exactly. No, I mean, the reality, the UCC, this is the thing, is that, everybody, no one is perfect. Everybody's infallible. So you can look at a person the wrong way. I mean, like you said, one person or two people, okay. But we have 9. We just actually had a general, the United States Air Force general in Japan over the APAC command over there. He was just busted and basically given his walking papers. We had we reported on the show the other day a very well-known, a very proficient pilot who was overseeing the investigation in the nuclear arms transfer out of Texas. They ended up firing or letting go the commander that was in charge of the transfer, head of SAC. But then they turned around and put another investigator in there. He's investigating everything that went on, and then he mysteriously, his airplane crashes, falls out of the sky, crashes, and kills him, and of course a civilian that was with him. And you've got a mass purging of our military. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's statistically abnormal, to have this type of exit. Talk about exit strategy. To have this mass exit and it is a strategy. I think Obama clearly is sending a message that you don't want to cross them. But I think we've all know it's amateur hour up there at the White House.
The things that they're being accused of are so.
Yes.
Some of them are Lieutenant General David Holmes. He was busted down for having an improper relationship.
Yes.
I don't even know what that means. Does that mean that he sent his on Secretary's Day? Did he send his secretary red flowers instead of yellow flowers? Is that what? Yeah. Is that what that amounts to?
Well, of course, we're going to fire these guys. We're going to do the press release, but then but we can't. We're not going to speak about it because it's a personal, internal matter. Yeah. Well, you're not going to speak about it because you're not going to give explanation, because most Americans would be like, so, I mean, we had the previous president, not the one Bush, but Clinton. He had an affair in the Oval Office, right? And he still kept his job, and then he lied about it. On top of that, he lied about it, and persecuted individuals. So, it's all smokescreen. I mean, with everything what's going on, we talked about this on our show last week. With the fact that Christianity and everything's under attack in the military.
Yes.
They're now talking about, of course they repealed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We're seeing a mass exodus of our troops there. Now they're talking about sensitivity training. They want our soldiers now have to go through sensitivity training. With the fact that they allowed gays in the military, or they're openly allowed. I mean, it's a systematic erosion. They attacked our families successfully, and they pretty much diminished the American family. Now they're going after the other strong part of this country, and it's our standing military. So
yeah, I think Stalin did the same thing, and
yeah.
I think Hitler had a similar program.
Oh yeah.
Anybody loyal, if you said anything bad about him, that's it. You were gone.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten to the gassing people yet, but who's to say?
Well, they didn't start out gassing people in Germany.
Exactly.
That was a gradual thing.
Yep. Well, exactly.
And the Jews had been so conditioned to just keep taking these minor insults
Yep.
a little bit further each day, that by the time they were loading them in the cattle cars, they were conditioned into the mind of a
Yep.
slave, and they just got in and didn't say anything.
Exactly. And and I know that this administration's been one of the most active administrations who have actually removed. They've been prosecuting IRS and this. These are the stories that you don't hear about. But church organizations, obviously, if you're a member of a church organization and you've got tax exempt status, you can't say anything bad against the government. Well, a lot of church organizations now are giving up their tax. And you actually, it was amazing in your book you actually, have a church that did that, so that they can come out against the administration, and openly say, look, you do not vote for these people. This is why and stuff. But we're actually seeing that in the real world, where a lot of churches are just saying, look, we're going to give up the tax status, and because we just got to speak out against this administration and what they're doing. We're under attack, and if you don't think we're under attack, then maybe I don't know how to say this. Maybe you're on the opposition, anyways. You're the go along to get along crowd, and everything. But God help you. God help you.
Yeah, well, the Jews went along to get along, and they walked right into the cattle cars and walked right into the showers, and and then it was too late. It was too late to say anything.
On that note, I'm going to throw that out there. What do you think about the government? Have you heard these reports? And I've actually seen where they're buying guillotines. Why would our government have a requisition in to buy guillotines?
I've seen the reports, and they've been from some sort of the back alley news organizations and websites that I can't really, I haven't really heard somebody that was in the military. I haven't seen like a mainstream news agency come out with it, which doesn't mean it's not happening, because a lot of things didn't come out until years later. The NSA spying on us, and the DOJ's snooping on the press, and the IRS targeting Tea parties and church organizations. So it doesn't mean it's not happening, but I don't know, but I suppose I certainly know that it could be, but I guess I would have to see maybe a little bit better proof to really.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what? I will start pulling. I'll start doing some FOIA requests on the GO, and see, because it's wrapped in with some budget bills, and some government contract. GS.
The guillotines are?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to pull those out, but they're out there. I've actually, and I wasn't. I wasn't.
In the book of Revelations, it's that's how the saints have died to stand up for Christ, is they lost their head. They were beheaded, and it's specific in the book of Revelation. I don't know the exact chapter and verse right now, but I could probably come up with it pretty quick. But that's specifically how the saints have lost their life, as they were beheaded.
Oh, well, you know what? I will get my old trusty computer going and get my template FOIA request form and start getting those out there.
Awesome. I'd love to get that.
Yeah, because I saw that. That was,
because it's big. That's really, really big.
Yeah,
and it's certainly something that everybody in the church is going to recognize as being, well, this is definitely ties in with biblical prophecy.
Sure. Talk about biblical prophecy. Did you see 95th? We're celebrating Graham's 95th birthday today.
That's so awesome. He's such an awesome man of faith.
Yes. I watched that. We did a little tribute for him at the beginning of the show, and then shared some of my experiences and stuff. So, well, like always, we always get through we blow through these segments pretty quickly. So let's do this. Let's take a break. And of course, then when we get back from the break, we will talk with Prepper Recon, all things bug out bag. And, if you don't think you need a bug out bag, just listen to the news, what's going on. I know that they're reporting next week. We're supposed to be having a pretty significant fireballs in the sky. There's, obviously there's things going on around us. Last week, NASA reported that we had solar flares, an abnormal amount of solar flares. And if one of those solar flares hits, thank God we missed them. But if one of those hits us, you can have a mass electrical outage across this country. So you're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast with your host, Jeff Norton. And when we get back, like I said, we'll talk with Prepper Recon about all things prepping. And tonight's conversation will be about bug out bags. Join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
What is that?
Oh, that? It's my time machine.
Does it work?
Sure, just hit this button.
Whoa, dinosaurs. Cool.
Or we can go here.
Hey, that's Napoleon.
Oui.
Or we can go to the future.
Wow, hey, you have this nice house. Do I have a nice house?
No, you didn't save any money. Always spent it on vacations and stuff.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and correct that bad habit.
Yep.
Okay, the time machine is not real, but the saving thing is. Get in the habit of putting some of your money in savings each week through a 401k, savings account, or financial investments. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy tips on saving, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
What does this crazy little button do?
Wait, no!
After Daniel Pearl was kidnapped and murdered in Pakistan, his family and friends came together to work towards a more humane world.
On Daniel Pearl Music Day, thousands of people around the world will unite to promote harmony for humanity.
Join us in using the universal language of music
to diminish hatred,
respect differences,
and reach out in friendship.
Participate in Daniel Pearl Music Day, promoting harmony.
Out of control spending. A government that no longer works for the people. Had enough? Then vote for Stone Anthony for president. Replace politicians with a citizen statesman. www.stoneanthony2006.com. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com for all the call-in numbers and, everything. Everything. Right now we actually have on the line Mark Prepper Recon. Mark, I am stumbling all over my words tonight, but hey, that's what you get when you do live unedited podcasts and radio shows and stuff. So
But it's very freeing because you don't have to go back and edit it.
Yeah, it's like,
it's done. It's out there now. You can't do anything.
That's
you can't
it.
put the genie back in the bottle now.
Exactly. I mean, for some reason, it was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who does, who's helping us. They have experience in some name brand talk radio, very, very well known talk radio hosts out there. And I've been able to develop these friendships with them. and they've been giving me advice. And one of the advices is, I live in Wisconsin, so Wisconsin's all things cheese and Packers, right? Green Bay Packers. And they're like, you got to stop drinking milk and you got to stop eating cheese. I'm like, what? Huh? and stuff. They said it changes your vocal, it makes everything sticky and stuff. So that was their suggestion. I was a little upset about that. But hey, you got to do it. You got to do, you want to do a quality show to get out to the masses, you have to do it. So right before we went to the break, we talked about bug out bags.
Yeah, and you were talking about fireballs.
Yeah, and fireballs. Did you not read that report? Apparently,
fireballs in Southern California.
Yeah, there's supposed to be 25 or 27 they're anticipating next week, and they're talking about many more. And a lot of people don't know this. The one that hit Russia, that blew out the window. It didn't hit anything. It just
insane.
Yeah, it just flew over Russia and it blew out windows and did a lot of damage. They said if that actually hit the Earth, it would have wiped out basically, it would have wiped out half of Russia. It's just unbelievable the amount of energy that's there.
That thing was going 60 times the speed of sound.
Yes.
And they never saw it coming because it came from the direction of the sun. And I guess it was sort of a blind spot that they couldn't see it, and nobody knew that thing was coming.
Exactly. It's people, regardless. We talk so much about the political climate and everything. If you want to talk about asteroids and all that, the Coast to Coast AM is on after this show. You can listen. You can listen to them and some of the stuff. But we really don't go into that. We have, natural disasters, that we have to be concerned about. Tornadoes, earthquakes. They had an earthquake, in Texas not too long ago. Now they're finding out, DHS is actually doing earthquake drills where they never done earthquake drills, and they're came out and said the reason why is because of the fracking that goes on, and they're finding out that the process of fracking, high pressure into the Earth's crust, is causing some minor earthquakes. And there was an earthquake in New Jersey not too long ago that they couldn't explain, and now they're coming back and saying that has something to do with deep well injection that's going on. So,
and that's more prophecy. The fireballs that's in Revelation 6:13 it says, and the stars in the sky fell to earth as late figs dropped from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind.
Wow.
So there's more prophecy there.
Yep.
And I did find the verse. It was Revelations 24, and it says, I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony for Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or their hands.
Wow.
So it's the punishment for not taking the mark of the beast is beheading. So if that day is somewhere in the nearby future, then it would only make sense that the guillotines should be being manufactured now.
That's just that's insane. The fact that prophecies and we're seeing it. You're clearly seeing it. And that, like I said, I don't know if you heard my testimony at the very beginning. I was never.
I did, and that was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I was never really a Christian, minded person until after that day. So I'm still new, like a lot of things, to the whole prepping movement, to the Bible. I read the Bible, but I really haven't read the Bible. I did the little programs here and there. One a day, read this scripture, do that scripture. Obviously, with an hour and 47 minutes on the train, you look for things to read. But I've never really read the Bible, and correlated it and everything. Believe it or not, I actually read Torah. I read Torah more than I actually did the Bible, the New Testament and everything. So, I'm learning. I'm learning, and the fact that you're pointing those things out is just, it's like, wow. And like I said, I'm not doubting any of it, because I can just tell you things that have happened in my life that you just kind of go, this is not man. This is definitely something guiding us, and moving us this direction. So, well, let's talk about bug out bags. I was unsuccessful in securing the Hello Kitty bug out bag for my daughter. Apparently it has been properly disposed either on eBay or in the trash can. So I'm now looking for another one. So we just lost Mark, for those that don't know. So what we're going to do is, we're talking about bug out bags with Mark at the Prepper Recon. And, he'll be joining us here in a minute. Mark, are you there? Are you back?
I'm back.
They don't want us to
guy
talk.
Just kicked out on me.
Yeah, that's weird.
You know what? Prepper Recon crashed the day before I left to go to the conference to promote Prepper Recon.
Wow. That's great. Well, we got hacked. You know what, though? We got hacked. You did the show on Thursday, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, no, we got hacked Monday or Tuesday. We actually had someone. We have a T1 connection that comes in here, which is a dedicated internet. It's not like cable or anything. It's a physical T1, and we had it come. And so we have a Cisco router. Someone got into the router and reprogrammed the IP tables in the router, the port assignments. And right at 9 o'clock when we went to go live, all the ports were blocked. And so our provider got into the management side of it, and they're the ones that told us all of that. So unfortunately we can't, because it's a managed solution, so they've got to have access to it. So we can't block all those, but they're on their end trying to figure out who physically got into our router and changed those ports. So
well, that's what the East German Stasi did to people that didn't want to go along and get along.
Yeah.
Is they didn't necessarily go around and lock everybody up. They did a lot of just kind of disturbance and disrupting, and and getting little things and finding out if you sent red flowers instead of yellow flowers to your secretary, and of course what was the Major General Michael Carey? He was the one. Oh yeah, for drinking is why he lost his commission.
Oh yeah,
and Tim Giardini, Vice Admiral of the Navy, he was over 18 nuclear subs armed with ICBMs. He had fake poker chips.
Yeah.
I mean, and Eric Holder is, he either violated the First and Fourth Amendments by knowing that the Fox newsroom was tapped and the Fox journalist, his email was hacked, or he knew nothing about it, like he says, which is complete incompetence, and he still has his job. And he either knew about Fast and Furious and selling the guns to the Mexican drug cartels, or he didn't know anything about it, like he says, which is, once again, complete incompetence.
Yeah.
And this guy still has his job.
Yeah.
And these 9 men have lost their commissions over these little teeny petty things. And I guess while we're on it, what about lying under oath? Didn't Obama take an oath in January, and didn't he take one 5 years ago in January?
Yeah.
And then didn't he get up and knowingly lie to the American public and tell them that they could keep their health care plan, that if they liked it?
But he apologized. He apologized tonight, so we should all be good for it.
Mm-hmm. But he lied under oath.
I know. It's
unbelievable.
It's the whole. It's like I said. It's the whole Saul Alinsky approach to governance, and you're absolutely right. And it's funny because you're reading. For the audience that knows, Mark and I don't really talk at all prior to the show, and it's funny that you bring up Holder and you bring up all of it, because I actually today prepared a 24 count scandal sheet. Basically, I just said, what are all the scandals that this administration's involved in? And, of course, we talked about Benghazi. We're going to be talking about that, in the third hour. But the funny thing is, I actually put together a little piece on Fast and Furious to kind of explain, because a lot of Americans don't even know what they hear it, but they don't really know what happened. So we're going to be talking about it. But it's just funny. It's ironic. Like I said, the hand of God moves in mysterious ways, because you and I didn't talk about this, but you just brought it up, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in the third hour. So it's insane. But no, I agree with you. This is a lawless administration. We got people that are running this country who, in normal course of everyday life, would be convicted of felony or felons, convicted felons for what they're doing. But for some reason, he like I said, President Obama today said he was sorry. So everybody's kind of, the mainstream media is like, okay, leave him alone. He apologized. It's just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. So, all right.
So the bug out bag.
Bug out bags. Yeah.
So, and you never know when you're going to need a bug out. It could be, the zombie apocalypse or whatever. It could be a train derails that's got some chemical on it, and you've got a chemical spill near your house, or it could be a dirty bomb nuke. It could be, there's a lot of reasons that you could need to leave in a hurry. If you live near a national forest, it could be a forest fire. There's a lot of reasons that you could need to get out of your house fast. Even a fire, just a fire in your home. If you've got a little bag and you've got 72 hours worth of food and a change of clothes, and you've got your flash drive, and you've got all your information backed up on that flash drive, and you can just get out and grab that. That's something right there. So a bug out bag's a great thing to have, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world as we know it. That is the reason that you have to leave.
Yeah.
So the first thing you need for the bug out bag is you need a bag. And so you're going to need something that's pretty big, because you're going to have to put quite a lot of stuff in it. My bag weighs 45 pounds, so it's a pretty big bag with everything in it. And I could probably cut down on some of the weight if I wanted to, but I feel like I need everything that's in there.
Sure. Actually, since I can't get my Hello Kitty bag for my daughter, I'm looking at the old military style rucksacks.
Yes.
On eBay.
The Alice packs, you can get the Alice packs right now on Amazon for around $30, and they're very, very well made. That's the ones that they just did away with, and they brought in the Molly packs a couple of years ago. So there's all these Alice packs on the surplus market right now. But once they're bought up, they'll probably be sort of like a collectible thing, and they'll probably go to $60, $70, $100 a piece. So they're really, really good deals. But now for anybody, if you're not going to go with one of those, though, I would try to stay away from the army greens, the olive drabs, and the camo patterns. I would try to get something that's a little bit more kind of blends in, like either a tan or a gray or a black or a blue, dark blue, something like that.
Sure.
Something that doesn't really stand out.
And that goes back to your comment that we made, the concept of gray, because we have a lot of new listeners. So, the concepts that you're introducing us to in last show, you said the gray man. Mm-hmm. We need to have the gray man principle. Can you kind of explain what that means about not being too flashy?
Yeah, you don't want to stick out too much if you've got on all camo gear and military BDU cap, and you look real military. You're going to look like a prepper, and you're going to look like you got stuff to take. Whereas if you just kind of got on the jeans and the hiking shoes and the regular ball cap with whatever your favorite ball team is, or just one you picked up in the store if you don't care about ball like me, you're going to just blend in a little bit more to everybody else that's out there on the street if you're in a situation where you're having to move by foot. And so you want to transfer that over to your bug out bag, but don't go and spend $150 on the same bag that you can get the military surplus one for $30, because that's another $120 that you can spend on gear to put in that bag. So, I have the Alice pack, and there's another school of thought that says, well, if you got all military stuff, you're going to look more like a harder target, and that in and of itself is going to be a little bit of a deterrent. Of course, you're 300 pounds, 6'6", right?
Yeah, I'm 6'6". Yeah. Yep.
So that's a deterrent right there. That's a great.
I don't know though, because a little 2-ounce piece of lead could drop me in a heartbeat. So I kind of don't rely on that. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that I think situational awareness too. You got to know what's going on around you.
Absolutely. So after we've got the bag, the first thing we want to take care of is water, because you got to have water. You can only go for about 3 days without water, and day 2 and day 3 are not going to be comfortable days. So you're going to want something to collect water with. The little like camping sports bottles that have the wide mouth on the top, those are great, and they're also compatible with the Catadine filters, which they're about $80, and they'll filter about 3,000 gallons of water. I think we talked about that last week, but those are great for the bug out bag because they're small and they filter a lot of water, and they've got the little cap that goes in those wide mouth hiking water bottles.
Sure.
If you don't want to spend that, you can get some iodine tablets. You can also keep a little bottle of bleach with an eyedropper. 8 drops of water for clear water per gallon, and 16 drops of bleach per gallon of cloudy water. So and you might want to do both. You might want to have the iodine tablets like potable aqua, and a Catadine filter, so you've got a little redundancy in there, because water is such an important thing. You might want to have some redundancy in there for that.
Sure. Now, one thing that I did learn, I've been doing some research. I was thinking about saving the old milk jugs and filling those up with water, but I was reading that those are not good because that plastic actually breaks down relatively quickly.
Yeah, they bust open.
That's true. Yeah.
So it makes a mess. Even if you got it in the garage, it's still something you want to depend on. Soda bottles and juice bottles are much thicker plastic.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I'm starting to, because we have the water barrels and everything, but like I said, those are great if you're going to stay in place.
Yeah.
I do not recommend, you're not going to be moving those around once they're full of water. So
can't get it in your bug out bag,
you cannot get it in the bug. So I was thinking of other ways of carrying water with me, and so I'm looking at containers. So the soda can, okay, that makes perfect sense.
So yeah, 2-liter soda bottles, that's pretty thick, and you could just take some paracord and put a slip knot and put it right over the top of that bottle cap, and put 2 of those, and you could string one on both sides of your bug out bag, and that could just hang back there.
Okay. Well,
they would counterweight each other.
Okay. No, that actually makes perfect sense.
You could do the same thing with juice bottles, and those big gallon jugs of Arizona iced tea. If maybe you don't drink it, but maybe you got a friend that does. Ask them to save the bottles for you.
Sure.
Because they're probably going to throw them in the recycle anyway. So, and then they've got a nice handle that may be a little easier to tie some cordage onto 2 of those to make a counterweight.
Sure. When obviously we prep our bug out bags and stuff. I mean, do you typically? I mean, what is the? This is I guess a question. What should be your target execution time from the time that you say, hey, look, we got to get the heck out of here? What should we be practicing towards as far as like total time and loading up your vehicle or getting the heck out of Dodge? Is there a
5 minutes?
Okay.
You should be able to be out of your house in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Throw on a pair of jeans, grab the bug out bag. I would keep your money, your passport. If you're planning on having a little bullion just in case this is some sort of an issue where there's not going to be dollars anymore, or credit cards anymore, have all that stuff in one place. I recommend having all that stuff in your gun safe. I think responsible gun ownership requires you to have a safe that's bolted to the floor, because kids, even if you don't have young kids that play with guns that are going to come over and hurt themselves, you still have to worry about people breaking into your home and stealing your gun. If it's in a safe, it's much harder to get to, and you don't have to worry about somebody stealing your gun, and you don't have to worry about your gun being used to commit a crime or kill somebody or hurt somebody because it wasn't properly secured. So I think that's a really important part of responsible gun ownership anyway. And then and I think you need to keep some cash in your house. Yeah. And what better place than a gun safe that's bolted to the floor or the wall?
Yep. So whatever you do, you should plan on, kind of, because a lot of people will want to take the kitchen sink. You see that all the time, where people are like, grabbing everything, and it's grab what you need to survive, because this is all about survival. So when you're planning your bug out bag and stuff, you kind of have them in the mindset that you have to move this from point A, from your house, your garage, or wherever you're storing it, to your vehicle or however you're leaving, and you have to do that in 5 minutes. So that kind of helps you. And the reason why I ask that, because that kind of tells me what I should be bringing, because I'm the type of guy that bring the kitchen sink if I can.
Yeah, but if you do that, if it takes you 15 minutes to get out the door, everybody that it took 5 minutes and 10 minutes is already on the road. Sure. And now there's a traffic jam.
Yeah.
And so by 20 minutes, you're probably just going to leave your house and get stuck on the road, and you're going to be in a worse situation than you were if you would have just stayed home.
Yeah.
And sheltered in place. So if you're going to bug out, you got to be one of the first ones out the door, because otherwise you're going to get stuck in traffic. You're going to get stuck in gridlock.
Sure. So you're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast with Prepper Recon, talking about all things prepping. And tonight we're discussing bug out bags. If you join us after the break, we'll kind of wrap this conversation up, and who knows, we'll probably get on some other ones. But once again, if you want to join us on the web, you can join us at www.themidnightpatriot.com. That's www.themidnightpatriot.com.
I'm Eric Dipple, 10-year veteran of the NFL.
I'm Captain Mark McNeil, 16-year veteran of the Army National Guard. Whether on the playing field or the battlefield, you must be both physically and mentally fit.
If you're injured, you owe it to yourself and your teammates to get back to peak performance. It doesn't matter if you've got a broken bone, depression, a traumatic brain injury, PTSD, or another psychological wound.
Getting help shows strength, not weakness.
To find out more, go to realwarriors.net.
After Daniel Pearl was kidnapped and murdered in Pakistan, his family and friends came together to work towards a more humane world.
A foundation was formed in Daniel's name to promote cross-cultural understanding through journalism, music, and innovative communications.
On Daniel Pearl Music Day, thousands of people around the world will unite to promote harmony for humanity,
carrying on his mission of connecting people through words and music.
Join us in using the universal language of music to diminish hatred,
respect differences,
and reach out in friendship.
We invite you to perform, support, or attend a Daniel Pearl Music Day event in October.
Participate in Daniel Pearl Music Day, promoting
out of control spending, a government that no longer works for the people. Had enough? Then vote for Stone Anthony for president. Replace politicians with a citizen statesman. www.stoneanthony2016.com.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
What is that?
Oh, it's my time machine.
Does it work?
Sure, just hit this button.
Whoa, dinosaurs. Cool.
Or we can go here.
Hey, that's Napoleon.
Oui.
Or we can go to the future.
Wow, hey, you have this nice house. Do I have a nice house?
No, you didn't save any money. Always spent it on vacations and stuff.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and correct that bad habit.
Yep.
Okay, the time machine is not real, but the saving thing is. Get in the habit of putting some of your money in savings each week through a 401k, savings account, or financial investments. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy tips on saving, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
What does this crazy little button do?
Wait, no!
This message brought to you by the American...
You are listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. Our show runs every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 12 a.m. Central Standard Time. For refeeds, obviously you can download it through iTunes and Stitcher, and I think it's TuneIn Network is another one. So with that, man, I gotta love this, Mark. I am actually at a loss for words today and stuff. I don't know. I gotta go get my head checked and everything. So you're joining Mark at Prepper Recon, and we're talking about bug out bags.
Yes, and I think we were right at food.
We were at food.
You're good. It's good if you can get 72 hours worth of food in your bug out bag. That's great. And that's kind of a lot of food. So you want to look for things that are going to be high carbs, high fat, high calories, which normally is not really what you're looking for in your diet. But for your bug out bag, that's getting the most bang for your buck. So canned pasta, like the Chef Boyardee, that kind of stuff, that stuff is loaded with fat and carbohydrates, and it's just nasty stuff. But it's great for the bug out bag because it's got a lot of that's a lot of energy in there in that small area, and and there's a little bit of liquid in there. And you've got the little metal can too, so if you want to build a little fire and heat that up, I keep a sterno in my bag too. So if I wanted to make a little hot meal, because if it's chilly or rainy or something like that, sometimes eating something hot will kind of warm you up inside, which is that's what you want to do to fight hypothermia is keep your core warm, and drinking something hot that can help ward that off. Granola bars are great. Nuts are great. They got a lot of fat in there, and they got a lot of protein too. So they're it's a healthy fat in the nuts. And then every 6 months you want to be going through your bag and rotating all of this stuff out and putting in fresh stuff. So you kind of got to buy stuff that you're going to eat, because otherwise you're wasting all this food. So the granola bars, the nuts, that's still healthy stuff that you can get and eat. And like we said, if you don't get the pull tops on the canned pasta, that stuff will last forever. So you don't really have to rotate that out.
Yeah.
The little pouch tunas, those are great because they don't have the water in it, so that it has a little bit less weight than what you're going to get if you get the canned tuna. because that water in there, I mean, I couldn't drink it. I don't think it's not really going to do you any good as far as the water. There's not going to be any benefit from that. I don't think you're going to drink that water out of the tuna can. I couldn't imagine it. I'd rather drink hot dog water, I think, which is nasty too. Beef jerky's great. A little protein in there. Of course, a lot of that stuff's got a lot of salt in it, so it's going to make you thirsty. But if you've got your water filter and you're ready for that, that's okay. A good multi-tool, and Christmas is coming up. It's a great time to ask for a multi-tool. That's not something that's really going to expose you as a prepper. You're not going to have to get into what do you need that for? Well, why do you want that? Are you a survivalist? Are you a nut? What are you, Chicken Little?
Yeah.
You don't have to go through all of that. A multi-tool is something that any guy can have and even wear on his belt loop without looking crazy, So the Leatherman Wave's great. That's got a lot of just kind of the traditional tools on it. It's got the little saw, and it's got a can opener and a knife and a flathead and a file and a Phillips head and a lot of little typical tools. It's got the pliers and I think wire cutters and all of that on there. If you get the cheap, you can go get a cheap one at Big Lots or Walmart for $5 or $10. But if you get one of those cheap ones, because you just don't have the money to put into a good Leatherman right now, $5-10, get two of them, because one of them's going to break. Sure. So you get two of them, and save up for the Leatherman. Get that a year from now or 2 years from now, or ask for it next Christmas or whatever. Get a good knife. You want a good fixed blade knife, and you can pick these up at gun shows, or you can probably find them on Amazon. But if you get the ones they've got the skinny base, and then it curves out, and it's got the sort of fat machete looking top at the top of it, those are great for chopping. So whether you're chopping wood or limbs, knocking off some limbs for a shelter, or clearing brush because you're walking through maybe thick vegetation to get off the beaten path because it's overran with hoodlums or whatever it happens to be, those are great for that. And they typically are going to have like a little saw on the back too, so you'll be able to do some sawing with that as well. And then because a knife is such an important thing to have, that's something you want to have redundancy for. And most guys have an everyday carry knife anyway, and you want a decent knife. You don't have to pay $150 to get a good folding blade knife. I like the Gerber Kiowa. It's around $50, but it's a very, very good knife. I had got a couple of the Smith & Wessons before, and the knives on Smith & Wesson are junk. They're made in China, and Smith & Wesson just stamps their name on them, and the screws fall out of them, and if you carry it around for 6 months, it's going to go in the garbage. They're that useless. They're really, really horrible. But you get what you pay for. They're like $5 or $10. And you can pay one time $50 for a good Gerber, and it's probably going to last you for 10 or 20 years, hopefully.
Sure.
Cordage. We talked about cordage a little bit before, having some cordage to wrap around your water bottles, so you can use those as counterbalance for each other, and you can just drape them over the back of your bug out bag and carry one on each side, so it's not top heavy. 550-pound paracord is the stuff that they use for parachutes. So when a paratrooper jumps out, that's what's securing him to the parachute, is that 550 paracord. Now that stuff is great. It's great for just about anything because of that. It's got that 550 pounds that it'll hold up. But inside of that are 7 other strands. So if you've got 100 feet of that 550 paracord, you've actually got a total of 700 feet of cordage. And you can use those inner strands. You could use it for fishing line. You could use it for tripwires. You could use it as it's in its regular form, in the 550 form, with all of them, the cord still in it, the individual strands still in the outer cord, to secure people. You could, if you've got hostiles that you've captured or whatever. You could use it to build a bow for hunting, or you could use it for a bow to build a fire with. You could use it for repairing stuff. If something's falling apart and you just got to keep it together for a little bit, it's great for that. You can splint a broken leg. You could build snares to catch small game. Lot of uses for something that takes up so little room in your bug out bag. So definitely get yourself 100 feet of paracord, and you can get it in black, or and they sell the little paracord bracelets. You probably see those a lot, and a lot of preppers get those, and then that way they always have paracord on them.
Yep. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. Is that for those that are want to accessorize their fashion and stuff, you can get the bracelets. I've seen those, and I think they say there's something about 50 feet of paracord in that one bracelet.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it
sounds about right.
Wow.
Now, CampingSurvival.com also sells paracord shoelaces with the manufactured ends. You could just take regular paracord and melt the tips and run it through your boots or your shoes, but that's not really going to look very nice for the office. So they sell it with the manufactured tips. So you'd always have two lengths of paracord on you, at least in your shoe. You need some kind of shelter, because if it's rainy and cold outside, you can die in 3 hours from exposure in poor conditions. So a tent, it's bulky, it's big, it's heavy, but just shop around, get the smallest thing you can find and the most compact, lightest design you can find for the money of what you want to spend, and just get it, because you need some kind of shelter. A tarp's a great thing too, because if you put that underneath your tent, it's going to keep the ground from sucking the heat out of your body from inside the tent. It'll help be a little bit of a barrier between the ground and your tent and your body. And a sleeping bag. If you get the mummy bags are the lightest, smallest thing that you can get. They're not very comfortable. I couldn't sleep in one. So I have a regular full-size sleeping bag, and it's big and it's bulky, but I wouldn't sleep in a mummy bag because I would just feel claustrophobic in there. My wife's is worse. She's got the big Sub-Zero thing, and it's the code name for it is the mule, because it's like lugging around a dead mule. It's so big. But you know what? It keeps her warm, and she's happy with it, and if Mama's happy, everybody's happy, right?
That's right. No, I mean, it's funny you say that about the mummy bags, because my father was stationed at K.I. Sawyer up in the UP, and we actually had our scout leader was a POW. And we did survival training. He actually created his own merit badge called the Polar Bear, and we had to stay 2 nights in under 32 degree, build our own shelters and everything. And I will tell you, those mummy bags, though, I know you don't like them and stuff, but they were. I mean, we had to build our own shelters, and the way that we'd dig down by the tree, we'd do the mummy bag. But the mummy bags actually have a sleeve that goes over them, so you don't need a shelter. You can actually just put the sleeve over it and then sleep out in the raw and enclose yourself, so that way. And I love them. Now
you're talking about the military 3-part
the bivouac or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
But those things were awesome. But that was when I was a kid. At 6'6" and my size, I don't think they make a mummy bag that fits me. So I'm like you. I have the full size sleeping bag. I use a Marimo. It's a Sub-Zero, because you're down in the south. We're up here, tonight it's, fall, it's about 32 degrees. In the winter up here, it gets, obviously below that. So you also have to make sure you get a sleeping bag that fits your environment.
Mm-hmm. But, Florida is so densely populated, that's, if things really, really get bad, we have to get out of here.
Yeah.
And my family's in Kentucky, so between here and there that's our bug out, and we've got almost 1,000 miles to get where we have to be.
Sure.
So it's a long bug out, and a lot of things can go wrong in 1,000 miles.
Yep.
I guess you probably read that in the book.
Yeah. Yep. From the brother-in-law or whatever, Colin.
Yeah. That was the cousins.
Yep. So no, I mean, we were actually looking at, unfortunately, the Great Lakes here. I mean, you could still go out in winter on the Great Lakes. It doesn't freeze over. It's just, that was one of the things that we were possibly thinking about doing is our bug out, because we're so close to Chicago. I mean, you're going to have, 10 million people just running everywhere. And, we were thinking maybe instead of trying to drive to get out of here, maybe we ought to go on into the lake and, on a boat. And so that, that was an option as well, is possibly just heading out towards the lake and getting up on the water, because there's not going to be that many people, going into the Lake Michigan, especially in the winter.
You do have, as opposed to going to the ocean, you do have fresh water going into the lake, and you've got a good filter system. Then you would have water supply. It'd be a real challenge storing a lot of food. Yeah. But it's not something that would be sustainable to stay out there forever.
Yeah.
But to get out for 3 or 4 weeks, you could probably set it up to have it for that. But it would be very difficult to do the Kevin Costner Waterworld.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Live on the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually,
because you got gills like he had.
Yeah, no. I actually I did a summer where one of my summer gigs is that we were delivering sailboats, and so I lived on the water, and I can tell you, your statement is absolutely correct. Even when you knew you were going to the port in 2 weeks or whatever, it is very difficult to live on a boat longer than a week. I mean, it's an interesting experience. I highly recommend it for anybody. You want to truly find out what type of person you are, get on a boat for about 2 weeks with another person, and that it usually comes out pretty quick. But that was an option. That was, because we are looking, I talk about doing the kitchen sink, I'm looking at buying a kitchen sink, with either a camper or possibly, like I said, a boat, a sailboat, not a motorboat, because you obviously with gas, I want something.
A camper's great because, then you if things don't go to the devil, you've got vacation for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And you can get 4 or 5 acres somewhere. It's just raw land. You can probably pick it up for $1,000 an acre, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And
keep going. We're in the Midwest here, so it gets up. It gets. No, I shouldn't say that. I mean
in the mountains of Kentucky, you can.
Yes.
If you shop around, you can find $1,000 an acre.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you had a camper to go up there and park on it, in the spring and the fall, it'd be great vacation time,
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Sandy and I were looking at up in Superior, Wisconsin, with a pond, so it had a freshwater source. It was $29,000 for 5 acres. So it's a little bit more spendy up here than it is. Because, like I said, we get a lot of people, especially during the summer, we get a lot of people who come from Illinois and that come up here to vacation. And so our price of land. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Because we were looking at land in Nova Scotia. You can get, for $29,000, you can get 90 acres in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
My goodness.
So, that was the other thing getting her, she's a Florida girl, so getting her to move any further up north is near.
She's north and she's gonna go.
Exactly. She's a Florida. She flat out put her foot down with us purchasing any more land further north. So, but like I said, you got to have a bug. You got to have and that that's a critical thing. You got your bug out bag. You got everything put together. You got it loaded up. You got to have a place to go. I mean,
you got to have a place to go. Because you're not going to go to the national forest and live off of the land, because everybody's going to try to do that, and all the game's going to be wiped out in 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
There won't even be squirrels will be extinct.
Yeah. I mean, that's so. I mean, I know that you, in your book, you talk about going to Kentucky and stuff. I mean, what are your recommendations for land for a family, say a family of 4? How much land should we have for sustainability? I want to use that.
4 people, you could probably, if you really manage your resources properly, you could probably do it on 5 or 6 acres.
Okay.
Comfortably, okay. I would think.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. So
yeah.
So back to the bug out.
Yep. And you were talking about bugging out on a boat. That brings up my next thing: fishing line. You know, fishing line comes in a little spool, and inside that spool, it's got 4 little sections. You know, where just sort of the braces. There's the hole in the middle that you could stick the spool on a stick or whatever, and have a makeshift fishing rig. And inside those little compartments, I've got one little bag of hooks, I've got a little bag of weights, and I've got two of the sections have some lures in there. So it's a pastime, and then it also might be a way to generate some food. You know, you wouldn't want to depend on it because you know how fishing is. Sometimes you catch something, and sometimes you don't, and more often you probably don't, especially if you don't know where you're going to fish. Matches, lighter, fire starter. You want to have some redundant methods of creating fire. So you want to have your traditional matches and lighter, and then you want to have something else that's a little bit more sustainable. And a magnesium fire starter is great for that because those things will last a long, long time. And basically, you just shave a little bit off with your knife into some dry tinder, and then hit it with the back of your knife, and that'll send a spark into that magnesium, and that'll just light that tinder right up.
Perfect. Now, have you ever done the steel wool and the 9-volt battery trick?
No, but I've seen it, and that's great.
Yeah, I mean that's
very resourceful.
Typically, what I have is as a backup is a steel wool and 9-volt battery, and you know, you talk about fire. One of the coolest things you can do, especially if you got kids, and I found this out and stuff, is actually doing that on a week. You want to, you know, we get busy, and it's like you got to do something with your kids. You know, the spend good quality time with them and stuff. I find that's actually kind of fun doing a fire bow and doing. Now my daughters are grown up now, and they're like, Dad, come on, that's geeky and stuff. But but being able to build a fire is very, very, very important. And so it's a good quality time because you will spend time with your children doing that. Because it's not something that happens over in a couple of minutes. It's, I think last time I did it, it took about 45 minutes to actually get a good ember going.
You did that with a bow?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it was, just to do it. I mean, just to show them how it's done and yeah, absolutely. It's weird. Everybody tells me that when the world goes a heck in a handbasket, they're going to hang out with me because I'm a MacGyver type.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And being resourceful, your mind's your number one survival tool.
Yes.
So if you're resourceful, then you're going to be okay.
Yep.
And last week we talked about the medical kit, and you just want a little scaled down version of what we put together last week, and you want to keep a little scaled down medical kit in there. And I think we talked about the first week. We talked about keeping a flash drive and keeping a copy of all your IDs, a copy of all your credit cards, the deed to your house, all your mortgage information, your insurance information, tax returns, your will, Social Security cards, your bank account numbers, all your passwords, your marriage license. Put your wedding pictures on there. Things that are really important that if you have to go and leave everything behind, you've still got your wedding pictures and maybe a few select favorite family photos on that flash drive. And I was talking about a program called TrueCrypt that you can encrypt all that with. And then you had brought up another encryption thing that you can put on a flash drive. What were you recommending?
Well, it's PGP, Open PGP.
PGP?
Yep, Open PGP. And stuff you can use. And highly recommend it. One of the things that we did is that we actually enrolled in one of those online backup services. Now, granted, world goes to heck. But, if it's an isolated issue, you got a ton of storage. Now, the one that we went with is that you can actually get a secondary product that will take all of your information, because, you're concerned about some, you hear about the NSA guys that are looking into the files and all that. So you got some guy at a commercial, looking at your personal information, but you can get a secondary product that will take all of that and encrypt it for you, and then, shoot it up. And then we also talked about on the show last week or 2 weeks ago how you can just use a very basic, which is a very strong encryption, is if you zip the files and put a password on the zip, put a true password, not, password 1 or something like that, but I typically will type my favorite, phrase or story in there. If you do that, believe it or not, zip, which comes on every computer now, zip, and with that password on there is almost near, if not impossible to break.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that. There's software out there that you can break passwords to computers and stuff. Zip, if you go out there and you Google it, you will find that there's no software out there. There's people that claim, but none of it works. To decrypt a zipped file, basically they tell you you're, SOL. And so and that comes with every computer. Zip is pretty much on every computer.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Yep. So.
And then you might want to whistle, because there's going to be instances where you don't want to be found, and there's other instances where you want to be found. So a whistle's a good thing to have for that. And the one I got from Outdoor World, and it's got a little magnifying glass that folds up in it, which is great if you've got the big atlas map of the states, and you're having to get through states, because those maps are very, very detailed, but everything on it is very, very small. So if you've got that little magnifying glass inside your whistle, that's great. And then this whistle, it also has a thermometer on the back, and then it's got a little compass.
Gotcha.
On it as well. So I've got a whole bunch of things in one little small compact device, and that's one of the things you're looking for when you're packing your bug out bag, is something that has more than one use.
Sure.
Like we talked about the paracord, and then like we talked about last week or the week before, we talked about baking soda. It's got so many different uses.
Yes.
And I've got a small New Testament Bible that has Psalms and Proverbs in it. And even if you're not spiritual now, put this in your bug out bag, because there's no such thing as an atheist in the foxhole. And if you're bugging out, you're in the foxhole.
Yes.
And just like you were talking about before I came on, sometimes it's in the pain that we find ourselves needing God, and that's when we call out to Him. And having that Bible there is maybe your connection point that's going to help you get through. We talked about, I think, in the first week, the rule of threes. You can go 3 minutes without air, and you can go 3 hours without shelter in bad conditions. You can go 3 days without water. You can go about 3 weeks without food, maybe a little longer if you've trained yourself through fasting and things, but it's not going to be comfortable. And you can go about 3 months without hope. And having that Bible in there is going to be a source of hope for you. And Psalms is just, if you don't know where to go and you're having problems and it's hitting the fan in your personal life, or whether it hit the fan worldwide or globally or just for our country, or whatever it is you're going through, and you've never read the Bible before, you can open up the Psalms, and it's right in the middle of the Bible, except in the New Testaments where they have Psalms and Proverbs added. It might be in the front or the back, but in a regular Bible, it's going to be right there in the middle, and there's always going to be a verse in there that's going to comfort you. And It's going to give you and give you peace. Yep.
No, I agree. It was funny because I was talking to a buddy of mine who's part of the Gideons, and we were talking about his organization and stuff, and he flat out told me, I'm not condoning it, but he flat out told me, he said, if you're ever in a hotel room, and every hotel has a Gideon Bible in it, and he said, if you truly need a Bible, take it. we'll replace it free of charge. Don't worry about it. They'll replace it. So a lot of people, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who was a Gideon, and he was saying, yeah, just, if you need a Bible and you're at a hotel or whatever, just go ahead and take it with you. Take it out, and they said they will replace it free of charge. So, for those people, you don't have an excuse to not have a good Bible.
No.
And everything. So, no, I agree. Now I've collected mine. I've got mine, but yeah, I was shocked when he said, "Yeah, you can take that. We won't complain. We want you to have it. That's why we put it there for you." So.
And keep a deck of cards in there. They don't take up much space, and there's an awful lot of entertainment that can be had from a deck of cards. Whether it's Go Fish or War or Spades or whatever. There's a lot of games you can play with cards and keep your mind occupied. Because sometimes, once you get to the place that you're going to be for a little while, and there's nothing else around, your brain can start messing with you. So cards are a good way to get your mind off of the situation sometimes.
And right now this ad server is messing with us. So you're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. Mark, can you stay on just for the next segment? I know you've got things to do. Yep. So we'll wrap up the conversation that we're having with Prepper Recon. Join him on the web at his website, prepperrecon.com. He does a weekly podcast as well with. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I do apologize for that. We're trying to get reconnected to the network. Once again, we lost our network connection, which is kind of unusual. We had to switch over to our backup feed and everything. So we are now running off of our backward feed. We're gonna have to get this resolved and figure out what's going on here and everything. So I do apologize for that. We'll get reconnected here in a few minutes to Prepper Recon Mark, and we'll continue our conversation. And so, as we were talking about earlier, we were talking about your religion and your beliefs in everything, and how important that is. And he gave you the rule of three. And it's very important that you have a faith or a belief system in place to help you and guide you through the tough times. I mean, it's definitely I don't want to scare anybody out there, but there are things that are going on in this world that are very concerning, to say the least. Very concerning. So let's do this. We're going to take a break here. I am going to get Prepper Recon back on the line. We'll get the conversation. I do apologize for that, but apparently we have a message that someone doesn't want to get out to the world. And you're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. You can join us here on the web Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Central Standard Time. Hey, Mark, are you there?
I'm here. I'm back.
No, it wasn't you this time. It was actually our end. Yeah, I'm telling you, we're getting a message out there. Yeah, once again, our router just turned off.
Wow.
Just turned itself off, so we're going to have to, we're running off of our backup cable internet connection. So I do apologize for that to all of our listeners. But yeah, it just right in the middle of the break there, it just turned itself off. So
at least it was during the break this time.
Yeah, but it's still, it kind of leaves, an interesting radio, podcast. So we'll get it resolved. I am definitely going to light some phones up tomorrow, and this cannot continue to happen. Now, one of the things that we notice is that we do have some pretty significant windstorms coming in here in Wisconsin as we're changing over to winter. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. This was, kind of it just happened. So, but I apologize to our listeners, but we're back with Mark at Prepper Recon. So Mark, so we were talking about, our belief in religion and how important that is to our ultimate survival. And so what's the next step after that?
Toilet paper. Get some toilet paper in your bug out bag. It's something that we take for granted, but man, if you ever need it and you don't have it, you're going to realize what a precious commodity it really is.
Yes.
And keep a change of clothes in there, because it could be, if you're out there for 3 days, you're going to want something clean to put on anyway. And there's also the chance that it could get wet from rain or snow or the elements, or it just might be stinky and smelly, and you just might need something clean to put on. And a little hygiene kit, those little bars of soap that you get when you go to the hotel. You use it one time for one shower, and those things go in the garbage. Throw it in, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and put that in your bug out bag. The little shampoo bottles they give you in the hotel is good too for having something for 3 days. When the small toothpaste and toothbrush, deodorant. We talked about deodorant. If you can find something unscented, that's great, because you don't know what the condition's going to be when you're going to have to get out and move. And if it's something where you're trying to evade somebody that's after you, having unscented deodorant is going to make you that much harder to track with dogs. Construction garbage bags, they're the thick mill garbage bags. That's another thing that's got so many different uses. You can use that for a poncho. You just pop holes in the sides and tear a little space out for your head, and you've got a poncho. You were talking about constructing shelters. When you were younger, going camping. A trash bag is something that if you put that up on the top, you can kind of give yourself a little waterproofing on your shelter that you're building out of twigs or sticks or whatever you're making out of. You can also collect rainwater with it if you need it for water. You can use it for water protection for your gear. You can put it over your bug out bag if it's raining to keep everything else inside dry. I have one of the big thick milled construction bags over my sleeping bag, and then I've just got that with some cordage bound to the bottom of my bug out bag. But in case I'm in the rain, I know my sleeping bag is going to stay dry. And a little AM/FM radio. Doesn't take up very much room. You get the small one, get an extra set of batteries for that, because that's your situational awareness. You're going to need some kind of connection to get news and information, and you need a little radio for that. If you can get a shortwave radio, if you can get one with a single sideband, you might be able to pick up ham operators, even if other radios are shut down for any reason. And even are you familiar with PSK31?
No, I am not.
It's basically what it is it's a program, and you can download it for free and put it on your computer or on your laptop, and it will you can send a text message through a ham radios.
Okay.
Or any kind of radio. Actually, you could type out the text, and you can have PSK31 installed on your laptop. Hold the speaker up to a handheld walkie-talkie, and send that to another walkie-talkie, and they can hold that up to the microphone of their laptop that has PSK31. FL Digi and DigiPan are both free software that will run the PSK31 program, and you can actually send text messages over airwaves.
Gotcha. Well, and that was one of the things too. Is I am looking at getting my ham operator's license, and a lot of this text messaging and stuff actually came out of the ham operating community as well. So, and that was one of the things that we were, that we're a proponent here. Not only just normal walkie-talkie or whatever, but I think we need to go back to the old ham operating. That way we can communicate with each other over long distances like that. Yep.
Yeah. John Jacob Schmidt over at Radio Free Readout's a big proponent of that, and he's going to be on my show next week, and he's going to give me some great tips on all that kind of thing. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more information, and maybe we can do that as a show segment sometime. Alternative forms of communication, because we don't know that we're always going to have cell phones and Facebook and the internet. So we might need some things that are not system dependent.
Yeah. Well, typically, if you look at any natural disaster, the first thing that goes out is the cell phones. So you can't, I would almost just guarantee or say, look, that thing, all that's going to do is hold you down, so I'm a firm believer. So I am actually looking at alternative ways of communicating, outside of the internet and cell.
And it's a little bit heavy, but I keep a little camping hatchet in my bug out bag. But it's got a nice thick steel head on it, and the back of it is flat, so I could use that back as a hammer if I needed to. And it also has a little pry tool underneath the head of the axe for prying out nails. So because it's got those three different multi-functions, the axe, a hammer, and a nail pry, I think that it's worth the weight. But it is a heavy tool for my bug out bag. And then I've got a little hand saw. I've got the saw on the back of the survival knife, but then you're not going to saw much with that. And then I've got a little hand saw in there as well, because it's very lightweight, and it's just got the thin little blade on it, and it just kind of slips right down in the back where I keep my maps and my tarp, so it doesn't take up much room and it doesn't weigh much. So for me, it's worth it to have that in there.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend. One of the things he does is he buys a bandsaw blade, keeps it in the packaging. He said because once you remove it out of the packaging, you'll have issues. He keeps it in the packaging, and it's a very small, compact, and he throws that in the bottom of his bag as a saw device, and and he says it's sharper than any blade that you're going to get out there for like a camping blade or anything like that.
Yeah. So if you've got all of that stuff, you've got a pretty decent bag, and you should be able to jumpstart society. So.
Jumpstart.
At least make it 3 days. And like we said in the first week, your bug out bag is also a bug in bag. If you've got that put together, you don't have to leave your house if you have to shelter in place, you don't have to leave your house for 3 days. You've got a radio in there. You've got extra batteries in there. Did I skip flashlights? Because you need a couple of flashlights in there. And those little tactical lights are good. Don't get the ones that are too cheap, because if you get the real cheap ones, they're going to not work when you need it to.
Yeah.
So keep some fresh batteries and get a good tactical light, and get 2 of them, because they're small and they don't take up a lot of room, and you're not going to have a problem fitting 2 of them in there. Those little headlamps are great too, the ones that they're on the band, so that you can be walking and it's illuminating your path for you. And That's great. So maybe if you got one tactical light and one of the little headlamps that you can that's on the stretchy cord, elastic cord that goes around the top of your head.
Now, one of the things, with flashlights, because we were looking for some, it's hard to find flashlights that are non-LED that are bright enough. Every camping store I went to, they're all LED and they're only 300 lumens or whatever. They're not nowhere near as bright as the old standard standby incandescent bulb.
But the LED is going to get you so much further with the battery power. It's going to last so much longer than the traditional ones.
Okay.
300 lumens is a lot. It's pretty bright.
All right. Yeah, I'm just used to remember the old style mag lights.
Yeah. Man, that's a bear. With all the other stuff that you're packing, that's great if you're, if you heard a noise out behind the shed, that's great for your house.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But now they take there's several that they make that are higher than 300 lumens that take like the CR123 batteries that don't take your average AA or AAA.
Yeah.
They're similar to the ones that they make to mount on the front of your tactical pistol.
Sure.
And I think you can. I don't know what's the brightest you can get those in. I think Surefire makes some.
Well, yeah, I know they're up to 5, 6. I've seen some that are 7. I've seen them with the strobe, but those have the xenon bulbs in them, which is different than the LED bulbs. That's a different, and like those are not made to be turned on and used continuously and stuff. So, but candles? Should we have candles?
Candles are great for your house.
Okay.
I don't know if they're not always practical for camping, or bugging out. But I'll tell you what you can do with wax is you can melt some wax and you can stir some cotton balls around in the wax, and when you pull those things apart, those things will take a spark so good from a fire starter or anything, or even just a flint, because it's very flammable to have that cotton with the wax in it. And they'll get real sticky, but when you're ready to use it, you just pull it apart, and it'll sort of expose those little fibers of the cotton, and they've got that wax on there, and it'll burn for quite a while. You can also use petroleum jelly and put that on a cotton ball, and that's a really good form of tinder. But the petroleum jelly will blow out faster with the wind, and it won't burn as long as it will with the wax.
Gotcha.
But it's a little easier to make, because you have to melt the wax, and then if you use an old soup can or something like that, you don't have to worry about having a pan to clean up, because you'll never get that wax out if you use one of your wife's cooking pans. You'll be buying a new pan.
As I say, you'll get the wax out when you go down to the store to buy the new pan to replace it.
Right.
But then you can use that pan to make your lead, your lead ingots and stuff for your bullets.
Yeah.
So. That's speaking from experience. There was a time, once again, you look, when you have kids, you look for creative things you can do to spend quality time with them. And that was one thing that we did. I think one summer when my daughter was 3, my youngest, we got into the candle making candles. We went to Michael's and bought the whole kit. And so, yes, I do know about getting wax on things and not, basically destroying them. So, oh, wow. Well, it's been a night. You got nailed. We got nailed over here.
Yeah.
See, it's coming. We need a bug out bag for the internet.
That's right.
We're just fortunate. Like I said, we actually have 3 different connections coming into the studio. We have our main lines, then we have a ISDN line, and then we have our backup normal internet. That's what we're running off of now. We're running off of the office internet.
Oh, wow.
For the show. Yeah, it happens. It happens. But once again, we can get upset about it, or we can brush our feet, brush the dust off our feet and move forward. It just, tells me that we are affecting change out there.
Yeah, you're doing something right,
We are. I'm constantly.
whether it's the NSA or the Devils or a little bit of both.
That's it.
You know, you're doing the right thing.
Yep. I am constantly monitoring our website and seeing where, you know, attempted logins and all that are coming from. And, you know, I'm learning a lot about the HT access file stuff on a website. So, yep. But, so we got our bug out bag. We talked about our location. We talked about our medical bags. We talked about the number one thing, having faith, having a belief in Jesus Christ. What, did we leave anything out for tonight's conversation, Mark?
I think we got it. How about next week we'll talk about when to bug out and when to bug in.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be a good topic.
That would be a good topic.
We'll look at some of the different scenarios of what could be coming down the pipe, and you know, because you need to pre-think that stuff, because if you make the decision under stress, you're very, very likely to make the wrong decision.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about when to bug out and when to bug in next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's very important. I mean, what I took away from this, I mean, obviously a lot of great information, but that 5 minute, you know, that was one thing that you know, I was always trying to figure out, and now remember that I need to pack accordingly, pack for the 5 minutes. So so that helps me. That kind of.
And if the bag's packed, all you got to do is grab your bag. Your wife grabs her bag. You know, if the kids, they each have a bag to grab. Everybody gets in the car. You go to the safe. You got your pistol and your bullion or whatever you're planning to use, and you've got your passports and your cash all right there. You grab that one more thing to grab, stick that in your bag, and you're out the door.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I'm actually looking at now is you know, all of our weapons and stuff. So I've got to look at, you know, how we're going to package those up so that we can grab those quickly, because I don't want to leave any behind, to be honest with you. I want everyone I take with me. So so that's going to be my focus this weekend, is looking at the safes and see how we can package those in such a way that we can reach in there and grab them.
Yeah, if you get the big huge safe, you know, you can probably put your rifle case in there, and the rifle case can have magazines and, you know, 300 or 400 rounds of ammunition and a pistol and a couple of magazines and ammunition for the pistol and everything right there in the. You can probably put your cash and your bullion and everything right there in the rifle case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna, you know, because everything I keep is, you know, outside of the cases, so I'm gonna have to rethink that. And everything. Wow, a lot of information. Once again, it's been a pleasure. It's been, you know, join Mark on his website, prepperrecon.com. And, you know, of course, after the show, we will get a link up onto this show where you can order his book, American Exit Strategy. And I highly recommend, if you want a fiction book that's actually based in reality, I highly, highly recommend American Exit Strategy by Mark, aka Prepper Recon.
Yeah, and I try to weave a lot of these prepper tips into the storyline too. So for people that can't sit down and read a technical book about what you got to do, I try to write that for them, and I try to write it for the guy that you know, he's got a friend that reads fiction, but.
Oh, go ahead.
You know what? I'll stick around to say bye.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, Mark. So you're listening to Jeff Norton, the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast with a special guest, Mark Prepper Recon. Go to his website at www.prepperrecon.com. You can always join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com for news and information and updated lists of guests and call-in numbers.
I'm Eric Kipple, 10-year veteran of the NFL.
I'm Captain Mark McNeil, 16-year veteran of the Army National Guard. Whether on the playing field or the battlefield, you must be both physically and mentally fit.
If you're injured, you owe it to yourself and your teammates to get back to peak performance. It doesn't matter if you've got a broken bone, depression, a traumatic brain injury, PTSD, or another psychological wound.
Getting help shows strength, not weakness.
To find out more, go to realwarriors.net or call
Out of control spending, a government that no longer works for the people. Had enough? Then vote for Stone Anthony for president. Replace politicians with a citizen statesman. www.stoneanthony2016.com.
America, welcome home the brave. The brave men and women who serve their country are coming home. Home to their cities and towns. Home to their mountains and valleys. Home to their families and friends. Home to America. Some of these warriors are coming home with wounds you can see, and some with wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends.
I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children.
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us on the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. That's www.themidnightpatriot.com for updated news and information on the shows. Well, Mark, it's been a wonderful evening. We both have been attacked for one way or the other. But I just want to say thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed having the conversation with you.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me back on this show. I always have a great time every time I come on, and we always have a great conversation. And I just think it's such a great thing that you're doing, trying to get people to wake up and start fighting to get our country back. And yes. I love coming on here and doing a little preparedness thing every week. I think that's important too. And it's in the same vein. A lot of preparedness is being self-sufficient and not being dependent on the government. And that's so much a big part of what the Patriot movement is all about.
Yes.
It's getting back to saying, you know what, the government's not responsible for my safety. I'm responsible for my safety. The government's not responsible for taking care of me when a hurricane comes or when the tornadoes come through.
Yes.
I'm responsible for that. My community, my church, that's what's responsible for that.
Yeah.
The government's responsible for defending our borders. The post office, that's actually in the Constitution. They're supposed to have a post office. I think that was Franklin's idea, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But there's very, very few things that they've been tasked with, and they've just intruded into so many areas of our lives that they don't belong, and now we're dependent on them to fulfill that role, and that's a big part of it is just getting away from that dependency.
Sure. No, I agree. I mean, a lot of people, I think, have a big misconception about the Patriot movement. They think that we're about isolism, and it's not necessarily we're about isolism. We're about responsibility, for ourselves and our community. And, it's kind of like, big bad government. We've grown up. Kind of let us do our own thing. We don't need you standing over us. Like the perennial parent, and telling us how we should live our lives. We've got this. We can take care of ourselves. So, but yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I have to apologize to you, Mark, and also the listeners for some of the flaws. Tonight has been kind of a crazy night. I don't know what's going on between the show and me not being able to speak.
You don't have to apologize for technical issues that you don't have any control over.
Well, I can already hear it. I'm going to get the email tomorrow. Your broadcasting skills. I was all over cues. My mouth was not. So, but it happens, not everybody.
Well, I don't notice that at all.
Oh, well, thank you. Probably
because I had a big bowl of ice cream right before I got on, so I'm probably myself. So
that's funny. But hey,
that's not going to do it. I gave up cigarettes and alcohol and
good for you.
And so many things that I'm not giving up. My ice cream and my cheese.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, no, I've got it. They're telling me I got to do it because it gums you up. So, but no, I appreciate it. And then we'll get together next week, and I look forward to hearing your show this weekend. And you can listen to Mark at Prepper Recon. It's prepperrecon.com.
Jeff, God bless you and have a great
week. Thank you, my friend, and God bless you too. Bye now. Wow, it's always a great show. We just have incredible guests on this show, and we have. I wouldn't call Mark a guest. He's actually a contributor. He brings so much to our message and what we're doing here, and him taking time out of his evening and his busy schedule, writing books, and doing everything that he has to do is just incredible. And we are eternally grateful. We're truly blessed here at the Midnight Patriot. We had our technical glitches tonight, but we trooper on. That's what life's all about. No one said it was going to be easy. No one said that it wasn't going to have its bumps and its blips along the way and stuff. It's those that, I remember one thing I got out of college. There wasn't a whole lot I got out of college when I went to college, but there was one thing. I remember a student that was in my speech class, and did a speech about failure. And she, put this in my head. And believe it or not, we hear it now, and I know where it came from. Failure's not failing. It's not falling down. Failure is staying down. That's failure. So when you give it your best, and even though you fail, and whatever you do, maybe a business, your relationship, whatever, if you've given it your best and you still fail, you didn't fail. You might fail, but people might say, "Oh, you're not rich, you're not this." You didn't fail. You're just living life. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Take that information that you gain from that point in your life. I'm not going to call it a failure, but that point in your life, and move on. Take it into the next relationship. Take it into the next business. Take it into the, wherever you go in life. It's not failure. So even though tonight, we made, we had, my mouth was, had a little tongue tied there, you learn from it. We do this thing called air checks. So tomorrow we listen to the show, we see where we got to improve on, and we make those changes and everything. But that's life. That's just the way it is. But, we need to move on. We got a lot more things to cover. I want to get out there to you guys. And one of the things, we constantly talk about this president and his issues. And I just wanted to, there's so many, it's hard to keep track of. So what I wanted to do is put together a list for you. So I have a list of everything that's going on with this president, so we can just go down the list. And I want to share this with you because it gives you some ammunition, at the coolers tomorrow when you're talking with your friends that are on the fence. Why do you hate Obama? When they ask you that. Oh, are you racist? No, we're not racist. Here's the list. Here you go. IRS targets Obama's enemies. That's a huge scandal. We know now that there was laws that were broken. Now, is anybody going to be accountable for those? I don't know. Probably not with this administration. But there was your tax information was given to operatives in the Obama White House. that were then in turn possibly used against candidates or those that were critical. That's a scandal. Benghazi, we don't have to, we can't speak enough of that because we still don't have our answers. We're still being lied to by this administration. And we're not going to rest, Mr. President, and those, who feel that you're going to just be able to wish this away. We're not going to rest. The best thing you can do, Hillary Clinton, is run for the President of the United States. So that way we can pound you every chance we get. We are not going to sleep. We are not going to rest. I am not going to stop talking about this. You can do it until the day you put me in the ground. I am not going to forget, and I'm not going to forgive you, nor my listeners. Benghazi. Remember that. Benghazi. Don't ever forget Benghazi. We talked about this. AP. Justice Department is monitoring the AP illegally. And of course then you have, we call it Rosegate. That the Justice Department targets a specific Fox News reporter, James Rosen. Calls him a criminal for reporting classified information. Slanders this member of the press. Slanders him. It's amazing. I was reading about WikiLeaks not too long ago. You know that we have indictments against Assange, but you know that none of the newspapers that actually printed the material have indictments against them? Do you know why? I do. Because this president can't afford to have the media against him. So they prosecute Assange and they turn it into Assange, but they let the media go, the ones that actually printed the material, because this president knows that he can't attack the media, but they can attack an individual. That's why it's so important to us as preppers, as us as patriots, and so we need to team together, because if you notice, if you're an individual, you're an easy target. If you're a group, they think twice before attacking you. That's why it's so important that you link up on Facebook. That's why it's so important that you link up in person as well through whatever organization. So perjury, remember this? General Eric Holder told Congress he's never been associated with a potential prosecution of a journalist or perjury, but then we find out that he was. A day later, it didn't even take like a week, it was a day later we found out. ATF Fast and Furious. I wanted to talk about that a little bit more extensively. We'll probably have to put that off to the next show. Our government sanctioned the illegal transfer of firearms to drug cartels. It wasn't the gun shops. It wasn't, the business. Our government sanctioned that. And unfortunately, those weapons are now being used against our own agents on the border. Then, of course, once again, perjury. Holder told Congress in 2011 that he just recently heard of Fast and Furious when he was questioned about it, which we knew was not the case. He knew about it all along. The Pigford scandal, remember this? An agriculture department effort that started as an attempt to compensate black farmers who have been discriminated against by the agency, but involved in a gravy train delivering several $1 billion to cash to thousands of additional minorities and female farmers who probably didn't face discrimination. It was a funneling of money out of our taxpayer, out of our funds to individuals that didn't need it or didn't want it. Well, they wanted it, but they didn't need it. We talk about the GSA, talk about funding. 2010, why everybody's cutting back, and we're in the worst recessions of this country, almost on the brink of depression. GSA spends $823,000 for a training conference in Las Vegas. Veterans Affairs in Disney World $6 million in 2 conferences in Orlando? Are you kidding me? When it takes 356 days for a veteran to get the services that they need, when a veteran who was classified as the worst wounded veteran to still be alive, he's a triple amputee, gets a bill from this administration because they supposedly overcharged him, gets a bill for $4,200, and they take it out of his benefits? Yeah. On average, it will take a veteran in the United States 356 days to receive the compensation and to get the assistance that they need. On average. So that means that there's people that are worse than that. But on average, 356 days. Triple amputee, he has to spend, he has $4,200 taken out of his bill or out of his benefit package. Why the Veterans Affairs going $6 million to Disney World. This is all under Obama's watch. Seebless violates the Hatch Act. I don't know if you guys know this, but she actually violated a law. Special counsel determined that Seebless violated the Hatch Act when she made extemporaneous partisan remarks during her speech in the official capacity last year. During the remarks, Seebless called for the election of a Democratic candidate by a governor in North Carolina. So there she is. As a public servant or as an employee in her official capacity, she is endorsing a candidate. That is a violation of the law. There are churches, there are 501(c) organizations that have lost their tax status for that. She actually violated the law. And this is a U.S. special counsel that determined that. And yet she's running Obamacare still. Got to ask yourself. Goes back to the lawlessness. Solyndra, just goes to show you, if you got enough money, you donate it to the president, he will then give you back your money 100 times. The hundreds of millions of dollars that have been given to Solyndra and their executives by this administration, and consistently, have shown that they haven't produced a viable product. Sounds familiar? How about the programmers of Obamacare? Over $346 million already spent. They could have given every American $1 million and we could have got our own insurance. I guess it pays to make a small contribution in in hindsight. Give a couple $100,000, get a couple $100 million in contracts. It's kind of like, the newly elected governor of Virginia took $100, made several $1 million off a land purchase. You not see the pattern here? So we're, Lisa Jackson, former EPA administrator Lisa Jackson, used the name Richard Windsor to hide correspondence, direct violation of federal law. Black Panthers, Justice Department was accused of using racial double standard and failure to pursue a voter intimidation case against the Black Panthers who appeared to be menacing voters at a polling booth in 2008 in Philadelphia. Obama, we'll talk about this. We haven't talked about this, but we're going to talk about it on this show eventually. It's going to come around and we're going to get to it. There's just so much. This job is the easiest job. Obama may have violated the Constitution in both the letter and the spirit of the War Powers Resolution by attacking Libya without congressional approval. That's no news there. This president, is lawless. We already know that. Biden bullies the press. Vice President Bolton's office has repeatedly interfered with coverage, including forcing a reporter to wait in a closet, making a reporter delete photos and editing poll reports. Excuse me, Mr. Vice President, you try to shove me in a closet, there isn't a Secret Service agent out there that's going to keep me off of you. You don't treat Americans like that. You don't treat patriots that way. If you got a beef with them, then you do it correctly and legally. You don't shove them in a closet. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. This administration has physically intimidated reporters, shoved them in a closet. Google it. You'll find it. AKPD. The administration paid millions to a former firm of then White House advisor David Axelrod, AKPD, message and media, to promote passage of the Obamacare. But then people are kind of wondering if this is a quid pro quo, because Axelrod had a $2 million bill that was owed to him. So a lot of people are wondering if that was given because as a payment. So your taxpayer money went to David Axelrod to pay off a debt that Obama incurred. C-Stack, former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel used Bill Clinton as an intermediary to probe whether former Representative Joe C-Stack would accept a prominent unpaid White House advisory position in exchange for dropping out of the 2010 primary against former Senator Arian Specter. Yeah. So now you have government interference in an election, bribery. Obama has been repeatedly accused of making end runs around Congress by deciding which law to enforce, including the decision not to deport illegal immigrants who may have been allowed to stay in the United States and Congress passed the DREAM Act. We see that. We see him texting out the fact that he's, with Obamacare, the business mandate. And then his party, then goes in and covers his butt by passing the law. But it was Obama that said that President Obama that said that they're not going to enforce the employer mandate for several years. He tweeted it out over the weekend. But then realized that he doesn't have the authority to do that. The hacking of Cheryl Atkinson's computer. It's not clear who hacked the CBS reporter's computer as she investigated the Benghazi scandal, but the Obama administration and its allies have both a motive to do that. There's an American political prisoner. Sudden decisions to arrest Nicola Besley. Nicola unrelated charges after protests in the Arab world over his anti-Muslim video. The whole thing that they called, that caused the Benghazi attack, which we knew now. We've reported on this show that was not actually the cause of the Benghazi attack. But we had him arrested anyways. And of course, influence peddling by this administration. An investigation is underway of Alejandro Marquez, director of the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Service, who has been nominated by Obama for the number 2 post at the Department of Homeland Security. Marquez may have been used his position to unfairly obtain U.S. visas for foreign investors in companies run by Hillary Clinton's brother, Anthony Rodham. That's just the 24 scandals. That's 24 scandals in 5 years. But of course, the media doesn't pursue these, thus forcing the judicial arm of this country to pursue these issues. It's utterly amazing. But one of the things that I find is that there's a lot of people that are speaking out against this president. One time, standard practice for those that don't know. The Secret Service. I know we got to go to a break, but I'm gonna hold the break off so we can wrap this up. The Secret, because I think it's important that you listen to this. The Secret Service typically, in the whole history of the Secret Service, usually, obviously they're privy to a lot of information. They very rarely ever speak politically or in detriment of a president of the United States. It's a very uncommon practice. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. This administration has gotten completely out of control. Completely out of control. And, you know, now even the Secret Service, the people that are sworn to protect the President of the United States, are now stepping forward. Here's an interview.
I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine
that Glenn Beck did.
You've met him before.
With a former Secret Service agent.
To listen to the radio. He's running for Congress in Maryland, but I met him when he was still working as a Secret Service agent and protecting this president. And he is full of honor. And he protected the last president as well, Dan Bongino, running for Congress in Maryland. And not because you want to, but because of the things that you've seen and the things that you know. Tell me what you think is happening with the government is being used as a weapon to destroy people right now.
Yeah, we're at a very dangerous point, Glenn, and thank you for having me. It's always an honor. It's been a while, so it's great to see you, and congrats on everything with the Blaze. It's just taken off.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, we're in a lot of trouble. The president sees government, and I think it's because of his lack of experience and maybe community organizing in the past as like this shiny new toy, which for all the disagreements I had with Clinton, Carter, and Bush, there were always limits. There was that line you just didn't cross. We cross it seemingly every day,
Every
Glenn.
day.
We're lost in the scandals. The Jamie Dimon shakedown at Chase, the HHS scandal, Kathleen Sebelius shaking down the healthcare industry for money, the IRS. It's to the point, Glenn, where these scandals in and of themselves would be huge, backbreaking scandals, are just lost in the scandal fog in this administration. It's worse than people know. I'm not trying to scare you either.
Tell me about the NSA. But with knowing you are Secret Service.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know, tell me what we should be concerned about.
You give the government information, it will be abused. It is not a matter of if it'll be abused. Keep in mind, it's only a matter of when. And keep in mind, as you well know, the libertarian streak is strong here. When the line between the personal self and the public self, which you choose when you hit your garage door open in the morning, you act differently in public than everybody does. When that line is determined by the government that keeps your information in a trove for release anytime they need it, how are you free?
The president is telling us that that is not being stored, that stuff is not being stored.
Right. They also told us that it wasn't being used for personal use till we found out employees, some of them at the NSA, were spying on their girlfriends and boyfriends. You know, it's not a knock. I live in a neighborhood that houses a lot of NSA employees. They're very good people, Glenn, but the bottom line is, having worked inside the government, it will be abused. It is only a matter of time.
So what should we be doing? Because we ring the bell, we talk about it, we look at it, but it's not going. It's just not, doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, Dan.
No, it's not. And the reason is, as I said, that with the Obama administration, that they're experts in losing you in the fog of scandal. This NSA thing is a back-breaking story. It really is. It gets at the very roots, I'm looking at your roots there in the grass, the roots of what liberty means. That flag means something. It's undermining the very principles by which made this country great. How do we do it? Well, action matters.
So make the case, Dan, because this is what people will say. I have nothing to hide.
We all have something to hide, Glenn. I know you're a believer. I'm a Christian. Jesus Christ, as far as I know, was the only perfect human being to ever plant his feet on this earth. We are all doing something wrong. The catch is not if we're doing something wrong. Are your private wrongs impacting on my civil liberties? If not, the government has no business in your life. We're all doing, it's a red herring. If you're not doing something wrong, the question is only when your private wrongs that had no effect on anyone else become exposed for the government's benefit.
Or even if you are living a relatively perfect life, if they have all, first of all, you can't keep up with the regulation. The healthcare regulation, we quoted something on the air literally today on page 35,560.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with that? Everybody's breaking the law someplace.
Right.
You know, the regulations are incredible now. But if you have all of that information, you know, as a Secret Service agent, you know you couldn't just take one piece of information and say, get him. You had to look at everything, and you could assemble things, could you not?
Yeah.
Could you not assemble
of course.
things?
Yeah, that's what we do. It's only a matter of time before someone slaps an email on your desk that you sent 15 years ago, threatening to punch out your neighbor for not pruning his trees, and says, look what we got against you. I need your information on whatever. Tony, your other neighbor. You're like, what? I thought that was private. Remember, when the key's held by someone else, liberty means absolutely nothing. That personal and private self are being evaporated.
Okay. You are not an establishment GOP guy.
No, not at all.
There you go. From the Blaze, former Secret Service agent speaking out against President Obama and this administration. That's unheard of. That is significant in itself. The fact that a member of the inner circle, you don't get any more inner than the Secret Service, the inner circle, because the Secret Service is around long after the president. As you heard there, Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Clinton, Bush's, and Obama, he served under. So, they're starting to speak out. We are starting to speak out. Change. We are starting to. We need to keep it up. We need to keep it attacking the source. And unfortunately, it's very easy to do. It didn't take long to put the list together of the 24 scandals, and there's more. There's more. Maybe we ought to read the list. But right now, the most important list that we need to read here at the Midnight Patriot is to honor those who have paid the ultimate price for this nation's freedom. Regardless of your beliefs in the war or what, politics, you still need to respect and honor those that have paid the ultimate price for our freedoms. Now, one name is too many names on this list, but I am grateful that it's only one name. And tonight, we want to honor Army Sergeant First Class Forrest W. Robinson, killed in action November 3rd, 2013. Now, if you're a military family member, retired, active duty, and you need help for whatever reason, please reach out to us. You can send me an email. Go to www.themidnightpatriot.com. We will make sure that you get the services that you need. If you're a family member who has lost a husband, wife, daughter, son, as they defended this great nation, I just want you to know that my family, my country grieves for you. My fellow patriots that are listening to the show will pray for you and your family. And if there's anything you need, please let us know. Please let us know. We are here for you. Now, normally we play our music and everything, but we're running up against the hour, so we'll wrap this up. And I just wanted to let everybody out there that's listening to know this. The Midnight Patriot, we put this show together to give you a voice, to give you an opportunity to have a voice in that, in this fog of media, mainstream media. We need your help to participate. We need you to like us on Facebook, to give us suggestions. If you don't like us, give us suggestions to make this show better. This show's all about you. I've said this and I'll say this again. I'm just the train tracks. Your voice is the train. So we need your help. We need you to, send out, reshare our message, our shows. Like I said, if there's anything in the show you don't like, let us know. We'll talk about it. We'll make changes. Because this is for you. This is your show. That's the number one way that you can support our efforts here. Another way, obviously, is, these operations cost money. We have to fund them. Right now, we're funding them. I'm funding them. But as we grow to get more listeners, as we add more affiliates, and as we, There are certain things that we will have to do, unfortunately, in order to reach the bigger masses that we're going to have to put in place. And that costs money. Now, I believe and I know that everything I get is, I don't get what I want, I get what I need. That's how God takes care of me. And so, that's why we don't really ask for a whole lot of money, because we know we'll get it when we need it. But if you're listening, if you're a small business owner or know of a small business owner that you would like their products and services to reach roughly 2,300 listeners every day, let them know about us. Go out to our website. We'll work with you. If you want a professionally produced, we have a company who's doing work for us. We worked out special rates with them. If you need a jingle or whatever for the show and you want it professionally produced, they will do that for you for roughly $25, $26. Or I can do it for you free. It's all about the message. Sometimes we get caught up in all of the decoration, the curtains, all of that stuff. At the Midnight Patriot, it's all about the message. It's the bones of the house. The house have good bones. So, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a house. We have a solid foundation. I don't make any bones about it. Talk about bones. I don't make any bones about it. So you can join us on the web every night, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. at www.midnightpatriot.com.